Hello everyone, Enix20 here with a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 video that I probably should have done right after I beat the game, but work. Anyway, I'm booting up Xenoblade 3 on my Switch right now to take a look at cutscenes, I guess, well, a few in specific. One that I can think of right now. But anyway, this video, as the title implies, is just me talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 as a whole since I beat it. I realized I didn't do this for Xenoblade 2 way back when. I don't think I was recording that much back then, though. About what I did do was I recorded all my fights against the super bosses, which was a lot of fun. I think I should have done that this time. I've already beaten one of them, though. Anyway, so I beat Xenoblade Chronicles 3 a few days ago. I don't remember when exactly. I think I had 110 hours when I beat the game, like over 110. And I'm right now up to 150. I had a blast. It was really good. I was also one of the last people to get it. I mean, I say one of the last. I was pretty delayed in getting it. Just, it took forever to get here. Then, you know, I got it through the Nintendo store because I wanted a special edition. Was it worth it? I mean, it was driving me crazy how long it took. But, I mean, ultimately it got here. I played it. I beat it. I've done almost everything that the game has to offer. Obviously, I still got to do the rest of I'm missing 17 unique monsters, including all but one of the super bosses. A bunch of classes still aren't at rank 20. That's going to take a while regardless. Although cooking works now, so that'll help. I'm missing the Pentelis region. Is the only one that isn't fully mapped yet. I think I'm missing a landmark somewhere, a secret area somewhere. I'll have to look at a list later. And not all the colonies have 5-star affinity yet. So maybe I'm missing quests somewhere, or maybe it's just a matter of filling out the Collectopedia cards and boosting the affinity that way. I'm not sure. But that is where I am currently in the game and how far away I am from completion. So anyway, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm looking at the main story little cutscene icons right now. And there was a lot of good in this game. Like, a lot of good, as in, like, 90% of it. The easiest way I can summarize my issues, which are the big ones that come to mind, there are 3. One has to do with a character, one has to do with a weapon, and one has to do with the ending. That's not to say that I hate the ending. I love the ending. I think there's one part of the ending, to be more specific, that I didn't like. But how and why I might not I can't tell. How and why I might not like that ending depends on what I see in the prologue, which I'm playing right now. So and also, as you can see, I have some footage of me in the cavity with my team just going around taking out monsters. I needed to record something, and at the time I was trying to grind up levels because there isn't any other area post-game that I could think of that has decently leveled enemies that can provide me with decent EXP. If cooking was working at the time, this place would be great. But because it isn't, it still takes a while, and I need to rely on chain attacks artificially boosting the EXP. Okay, so I'm thinking about how to start this, because I mean, probably best. So given that I've beaten the game, I will be talking more in depth on spoilers. So I should have said this at the beginning. I'll put the note in the description and everything. But this is post-game thoughts, so I will probably say something that I shouldn't say if I was trying to keep spoiler-free, which I'm not. So if you haven't beat the game, it's best to not listen to this until you do. If you even have any interest in, but that's up to you. So anyway, I had a blast. Like, I'm looking through the cutscenes from the beginning of the game, and it's just like, it's introducing the concept of the world and everything and just how it works, because all we knew at the time was that this was like a weird fusion of the Xenoblade 1 and 2 worlds, and there were some inconsistencies with that because, well, obviously Uriah wouldn't be slumped over missing a chunk out of it on the mountain if this was a post-Alrest world. And the Mechanis sword would not be that complete if this was a post-Bionis world. Because for all you who played those games, you know that Uriah, at least last we saw it, was in one piece, and the Bionis sword was, the Mechanis sword, sorry, was much shorter than that. I think it was like the hilt and maybe a little bit of the end that was left over after Egil's final battle with Zenza. So it just wouldn't make any sense from this. Even though the beginning of the game shows what looks like the two worlds merging, which they explain later. I think the most confusing thing about the beginning, because I needed to watch the movie again to the opening to convince myself about what part of the ending was not confusing me, but that I didn't like. But I thought when because when the sky shows another world, I thought the big shot was showing Alchemoth, like Alchemoth was entering the world's atmosphere as they were fusing, that kind of thing. But watching it again, I realized Alchemoth was there the entire time. So the world that we see at the beginning of the game is a post-Bionis world. It's XC1. And then the world in the sky, ironic, that appears there would be the post-Alrust one. So that'd be the 2-1. Okay. Alright. That'll become relevant later. Gosh, I'm trying to think like how to get through this. This game is pretty dense with how it introduces all its concepts and how the world works. But I found it really fascinating. I think the most interesting thing, from a gameplay perspective, which is something that they introduced and then got rid of almost immediately, was the flame clock system. If I understand it correctly, in colonies, the idea is that their flame clock, it depends on how effective that colony is and how high the rank it is. And the lower it is, it actually affects your characters and makes them weaker. And so you have to kill monsters to try to fill it up. That's relevant for about like 2 hours of the game, because up to that point you meet Vandom, everyone becomes Ouroboros, and you're no longer tied to the flame clock system, and it doesn't matter anymore. It's a concept that comes and goes real quick, although I think every time you enter a new colony, it comes back. But by that time, the hero quests are pretty immediate. They're pretty short. And you freed the colony, and it doesn't matter anymore. It's a weird thing that's there, but I guess it's more for story and gameplay integration than anything big. I guess the easiest way to start is we're talking about characters. Gosh, I'm so unprepared. I should have written something down. But I mean, I really liked everyone. Like, just the whole squad. Every time they stood around and talked and bonded, that's what I like in games. I want to like the characters, the cast of a game, so give me more reasons to. And I like all the ways that they talk to each other and interacted with each other, whether it was the Kevis gang or the Agnes gang, and then when they came together. And they do stick to their Ouroboros pairs most of the time when it comes to talking, but there's some times where they will all talk to one another, and that's really the best parts. Because obviously the strongest pairings that the game wants to enforce would be Noah and Mio, Uni and Tyon, and then Lance and Senna. But anytime they just talk to each other as a group is even better. Because all their personalities bounce. They're a lot of fun. Well, I mean, I say they're a lot of fun, and I immediately start thinking of Noah, who's, I think, spends the entire game very depressed. And I don't blame him, though, for everything that's happened. Or at least his role as an Opseer in this world just of constant death and misery. Lance is a lot of fun, Uni's a lot of fun, Senna's a lot of fun. Tyon's silly. Tyon's silly in the way that he's the straight man of the group, I guess. Like the most serious one, the tactician. But obviously when you're surrounded by that many goofballs, they tend to, kind of destroy your point that you're trying to make. I think Tyon's interesting specifically from just the character's perspective, because I don't understand where he comes from. Everybody else in the squad, I think, makes sense. I mean, I guess I could say the same about Noah. But, like, because you got Mio, she's a Gormati. Senna's a Blade. Lance is a Machina. Well, Mia's a Flesh Eater also. And Uni is a Hyentia. Although, as we learn, these words mean nothing to them. Tyon, the weirdest thing about him is just his weapon. There's no pre-existing weapon like Mondo in Xenoblade 1 or 2. So I guess it's just a unique creation in 3 for him. But gosh, across all the cutscenes in the game, that fucking little piece of paper puts in work. Like, you would think that in cutscenes, obviously Lance takes on a lot of the Guardian role by setting up his shield sword and blocking whatever attacks are being dealt with in cutscenes. And you would think that Mio would take care of the rest since she's a defender as well, but it's Tyon setting up shields. Those Mondo act as like tracking beacons. He's just able to do whatever he wants with those things, which is very impressive. And the gang is really good. The way that they bond across the entire game is really good. Mio and Noah have a great relationship. I wasn't sure if they would actually go into it before starting the game. Like, I imagine, like, well, it's the lead male character, lead female character. I mean, 90% of the time they will develop that romantically, as they did with Shulk and Fiora, and then Rex, Pyra, and Mithra. But I don't know, I wasn't entirely convinced for some reason this time. But no, they did, and it's really great. I love the relationship that Noah and Mio have. And it's funny coming off of Tales of Arise too, where I really enjoyed the developing relationship between Alphen and Xion. And just the way that it ended, and for the both of them, I was impressed. I was impressed. Because, I mean, jeez. When was the last time any of these RPGs showed the, like, the main couple actually getting intimate in, like, a meaningful way? And, like, I mean, hand-holding's fine, hugging's fine, forehead touching's fine. But, like, they're like, yeah, we're never going to show our main couple's kiss ever because we don't do that. And then they did that, and I'm like, oh, that's great. I love it. Just because, like, it's really good when it's a couple you're very invested in or that you really like. And it's like their ultimate payoff as part of being a couple. And it just feels good. It was like a good feeling to see that in the ending. Unexpected, but then it happened. I was like, oh. So it just made me happy. So I really like them. And I just think that the beginning is interesting because of, like, I mean, I guess you knew from all the trailers that Vandam's role was going to be very small, given that in every single appearance he had in the trailer it was only in that valley, and he looked like he wasn't doing well, so the fact that he's introduced and, like, dies hours later, it's like he had a rotten role, like a rotten draw compared to Xeno 2 Vandam, which at least he's alive for the entirety of Chapter 3, I think it is, and then it dies at the end before Mithra is introduced. But I did like how Vandam, like, just his whole reason for doing this for them was simply because he didn't think it was fair, and I enjoyed that these kids are stuck to just living for 10 years and that's it. They live, they're born, they fight, they kill, and then they die. And it was that reason enough, and seeing them and how they acted, that he decided to make them Ouroboros. And then they had to fight D right at the beginning of the game, Moebius, the villains. Which, from what I understand, a lot of people aren't really impressed with Moebius. They're all too, what's the word that people use? I guess cartoony? Or, like, they're very basic villains, like one-off villains for the most part. There are a few of them that get more time, more development. Obviously D is one of them. J, N, M, Z. The ones that appear more. X and Y have more appearances. I, S, and C, I think, are the ones that they definitely spend more time on. Whereas all the other ones will appear for a quest. Usually a hero quest, sometimes in the story, but usually a hero quest. Where you meet them, you fight them, sometimes you have to fight them 3 times, or 2 times, and then you kill them and then they're done. And I mean, I don't have any issue with that personally, because as long as they serve their role as antagonists, I don't really mind if they're boring per se. Like, I'm like, they're just unlikable assholes, most of them. Cool, I'll kill them, that's fine. I think they spend time enough with specific ones that it makes them interesting. Or not just more, like, more developed. Like, all the ones that I listed off, of all of them, I think the one that they definitely spend the most time on is N, obviously. But all the ones that I listed off I enjoyed more, for varying reasons. With those X, Y, and Z being the main ones, because those guys are, I think the game states that those are true Moebius, whereas the other ones are people who were turned into Moebius. And all had different bonds with different people, or at least to a certain extent. Like D, the main one, Dirk, who you fight up until Chapter 6, is just, he's crazy. He's this game's version of Mumkar and Gort from 1 and 2, because he's got the claws, and he's an insane guy who just loves the power, and he loves the killing, which is very similar to Mumkar's reasoning for why, after becoming face, he just decides to kill people. It's like, it's fun, you know? And Jay, Yorin. Oh man, Yorin. I wasn't sure. Like, when I first met Yorin, because Yorin he's supposed to be a friend to Noah's group when they were kids, and then he died during an attack, and he was brought back as a Moebius, and he's like insane, crazy, evil. After that cutscene where he was revealed to be behind the fake Colony Lambda? Izzard's colony, when he was not controlling them. He created a whole bunch of fakes and he was using them to fight us, and then he revealed himself and he was spooky scary, acting very evil. I was like, alright, there's no hope for this kid, let's kill him. And it's one of those disconnects that I have a lot lately in games where, like, I'm very willing to just pull the gun out and shoot. And when characters in games resist that, I'm like, no, just commit, just kill him. We've done this before. Like, that's the state of mind that I'm put in. And for the entirety of the closing of Chapter 3, I think that is, when you meet Yoren and you fight him, I was just like, just kill him. Why are you guys having such a hard time with this? Just do it. He's clearly insane. But like they didn't want to divorce, they couldn't divorce their thoughts of who Yoren was to who this was. Even though I was like, no, I think you should take him out. But I think the other issue with Yoren, with his story, comes from how it's resolved. Because, I mean, once again, we're getting into spoilers. So Nia and Melia are in this game. We've seen them all the time, but not in the way that you expect. Because the queens of Agnes and Kivas, the ones that are acting with the consoles and keeping this war going, are not actually Melia and Nia. But it was a narrative mistake, in my opinion, to have Yoren's final scene and his redemption? His payoff? I don't know what to call it, but his conclusion to Yoren's story and Dirk's as well. It was a mistake to put that next to baiting Nia's death. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a giant Nia and Melia fan. I'm not the kind of person who you see all over the internet. Because, like, literally, it seems like almost everyone who played 1 and 2 came out of it being like, Nia and Melia are like the greatest things ever made, and they're the best. And they're like S tier. And I'm just like, I don't see that. I don't agree with that. I was the person who, when Future Connected was announced and it was like, oh yeah, it's just a Melia story, I was like, I'm not interested. I still played it and I still had a blast, but it was just not aimed at me. I really didn't care for it in that way for that reason. So when this game came to introducing and being like, yeah, the only returning cast members we would be having for 1 and 2 is Nia and Melia, I was like, alright, we'll see what they do with them. So they're not villains, and I think it would have been very difficult to try to establish a reason and a story as for why Nia and Melia would create a world like this, full of child soldiers trying to kill each other. It's a stretch, I admit. But I think the idea of it is like, well, how and why did this happen? Is there something fundamentally wrong with that Bionis World has with Alrith's World and vice versa? And they ended up going with the Melia and Nia queens are just robots that the consoles created to act as the uniting figureheads for their respective nations. Like, this is the queen for you to fight for her, even though she's not real. And the real Melia and Nia are in different places, with Nia being in stasis and Melia being captured by the enemy, by Moebius. But, so, yes, they do bait Nia's death right before they launch into the final Dirk and Yoren section. And that's that narrative mistake, as I said before. I don't think they should have done that. Like, once again, my attachment to Nia, I like her. And when I actually saw her, I was like, okay, cool, she's back. And, you know, and then Dirk shoots her, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's dead. And I'm like, I've experienced too much media these days across TV shows where they don't give proper respect to legacy characters, and they just shit all over them, or they make them weak, or blah 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 blah. Doing that to Nia at that point, I was just like, even if I don't have the attachment to her that most people do, that's a dick move, Xenoblade. You shouldn't have done that. And like, you're like, well, wait, you believe they did that? And I was kind of half and half on it. The issue is that it's like, I didn't think they would do it, but the fact that they presented the idea when I didn't think they would do it would just make it like, well, then why did you do it? You know, I don't buy it. Especially because what they try to do, which admittedly, the last scenes with Yoren and Dirk, and when they get through to Yoren and they have him blow himself and Dirk up so they can get rid of them, was good. That was a good conclusion. But I don't blame other people for completely overlooking it because it happens after they bait Nia's death, which I've seen some comments about that being poorly timed, and I was like, yeah, that was very poorly timed. Even if you didn't believe for a second they'd actually kill Nia off, you gotta admit that was not the best way to go about it. Wow, I skipped ahead to chapter 6, but that's fine. I'm just talking about villains now. And see, I'm trying to talk about Yorin, but it's hard to talk about how his story ends when Neo was there. Ultimately, I did think Yorin's was good. It flipped me around from wanting him dead to being glad they were able to get through their friend one time before he blew himself up and took Dirk with him. And then we got the Neo Lordom. But what other villains they have? I think the other best ones when it comes to them is Irma from Colony Mu and Shania from the city as being very good villains, or just very good characters. And then after that, I wish the game had spent more time on Chris, like Noah's specific bond to it's the guy that trained Noah. I was gonna say Moebius and I was gonna say Noah, and they get confused. But he was the Offseer who instructed Noah on how to be an Offseer. And he even says that aside from, at one point, he says aside from Uni and Lance and Yorin, he had another friend, and then they show Chris. And I'm just like, why are you talking about him now? Okay, you know what, fine, talk about him now, give me more. But they didn't do a lot for that, and I was really hoping that they would. Like, the trailer, I thought, like, made him look important, and in the game, he's only at the beginning of the game, doing the off scene before they do that really cool, which I really liked it actually, the where he's performing the ceremony, and then as is the camera spinning around him, it changes to Noah in the field, off seeing all the soldiers that just died in the opening battle. And I was like, that was really nice, and I thought that was his whole contribution. And then hours later, he comes back into the story through Noah's flashbacks and other assorted flashbacks where we had to take him on in Noah's side story. I did like Chris. I just wish he had a bigger role. I just enjoyed his own perspective on this and why he wanted to oppose Noah, and because a lot of the interesting things about hero and villain, or protagonist and antagonist relationships, comes down to differences in philosophy and what they think about certain things, and that makes things very interesting. It's why Shania is so interesting. It's just like her philosophy and her belief in the endless now and the state of the world being better or more right than a world free to do as it pleases. And it's intriguing, and so I kind of wish Chris was around longer, or that they gave him more focus. But what he did have in the game, at least, I was satisfied with. I just wanted more, which is just like, I mean, I don't think that's a negative in some respects. I think if you see something that you like and you want more of it, I definitely think that's an advantage. Gosh, I really am spending a long time on the villains, but like, I'm just giving you my views on them. X, Y, and Z, better to talk about with, I guess, more in depth at the ending. But I think that's a good character roundup. I think I spend more time on the villains than the heroes. But I mean, I'm not the best at this. I'm trying, and I keep feeling like I'm saying the same thing. Like, I like this, but I really did. Like, it's just, they're a really great cast. I think after the Xenoblade 1 and the Xenoblade 2 gang, I'm just really happy with the Xenoblade 3 gang, which is good. I've never had an issue. Not true, I had an issue with the X gang, but we're not going to talk about that, because that's not related to the trilogy, and I'd rather forget about it, so we're moving on. So the world was a lot of fun to explore. Like, I spent so much time just running around, exploring, trying to map places, just meeting up and like fighting monsters, and I just enjoyed the gameplay as well. And it was very different how the arts palette was set up for this game. It's much more in line with 2, but everyone has 6 arts, and everyone has 3 Xenoblade 1 arts, I call them, and 3 Xenoblade 2 arts. So they have the 3 that are on cooldown, like 1, and the 3 that are on recharge rate, like 2, where every hit charges the art again until you can use it again. And I thought that was a really good. It's just really cool, because you'll always have something available to you to use from either side of the art palette. The thing with that is that they limit it at the beginning of the game until you hit certain level benchmarks, and they unlock your ability to equip more skills, more arts, more fusion art specifically. Because when the game starts, I think you only have 3, and then you unlock an extra fusion art slot, and then a second one and a third one. Same for gem slots and accessory slots. you start very limited, and then as you level up, I think by the time you hit it's either level 40 or 50, I can't remember. You should have everything unlocked, and you can fully customize the characters. Like, I like the idea of how the classes work in teaching you, in granting you new abilities up to rank 10, and then up to rank 20. I think from every class you gain 2 different arts, and then you also get the ability to use their talent art, which I think all that is really cool. The issue I had with it, which is a very small one, is that because of how the game is set up and how you learn arts and everything, I used Noah and the gang's default classes and weapons twice in the whole game, maybe 3 times. I think it was at the beginning of the game, once they introduced the tutorial for swapping classes, which I'll get back to that. You should have mastered their default ones already. They should all be at 10. So you swap them to the other ones, and then when you master those at 10, you swap them to the other ones. And because the game's always giving you CP to master classes, you should ideally always be in a class that isn't mastered. The only exception I could think is if you get to a boss that's hard and you maybe want to fall back on something familiar, like an old class setup that you already mastered but you like the feel of. But you should never feel the need to return to their base class until you hit their side stories and unlock 11 to 20. So they could keep ranking up their class so you could use it again. But then you're not using it for most of the game. I think it was only Uni and Tyon, I think they got their first ones, that I used their classes again when they boosted them up before swapping them around again. I think Uni and Tyon hit 20. And then at the end of the game, I waited till the end of the game, till the final dungeon, when I put everyone back in their default classes. And before I finished the final dungeon, they all hit 20. And it's just, I guess it's an aesthetic thing? I don't know. Just because in the cutscenes, certain cutscenes just have the characters draw their weapons, draw their blades of whatever class they are, and whatever clothes they are. But other cutscenes, the more important key ones, will reset the characters to their default clothes and their default weapons. And so something when you're watching a really cool cutscene, they're going to fight this really cool thing, they're all in their default state, like, okay, let's go, and then the fight starts and you're not using those weapons. It's like a disconnect, and I'm just like, I kind of wish I was using their default weapons, because their default weapons are cool, and I enjoyed their default classes, but you get so much more out of the gameplay from swapping classes. So it's ultimately not a negative. I don't think this should qualify as a negative against the game, but it is something that just personally not bothered me. I don't know how to describe it. But it was just something that I kept thinking back to, being like, I kind of wish I had more reasons to swap them back to their base class. I mean, even now, at the post-game, you unlock the ability to upgrade their main class, the main class weapons, like, at the end of the game. Like, I don't know when's the earliest you can do this, but there is a way, because throughout the entire game, you pick up these super bright, glowing objects, and I didn't find out what they were until like 120, 130 hours in. I don't remember when it was, but there's a quest. No, it wasn't that far, because I didn't beat the game yet. The game will tell you, I think it was like 80, 90 hours in when they finally told me, oh yeah, those bright things you've been picking up, we can use them to reforge your weapons and make them better. The enhanced versions of the weapons only apply to their specific characters. So if Noah's in his sword fighter class, he'll use his upgraded sword. But if Mio's in the sword fighter class, she'll just use the default one. So they're limited to only the main character's main class, and they provide a little boost in the stats. I took a screenshot before and after I upgraded. I'm like, yeah, there is a boost in stats. I've used those new weapons that I got. Never, because I haven't swapped them back to their default classes yet. I'm still just messing around with different classes, doing different formations as I take on more uniques and super bosses in the post game now. So it's just like, I mean, it's cool to have, and the weapons look awesome once they've been upgraded, but I just haven't actually seen the reason to use them or to rely on them. With the exception being, Neo is currently the only character making use of that upgrade, because she mastered all her defender classes. And, like, I don't have someone else available, because everyone else is still learning their skills in their current classes. So I don't have anyone else available to become a defender, so she can become like an attacker or a healer. And I just have her as Zephyr. And I'm just like, you stay like that. And the issue I have with that now is that the game doesn't give a shit about defenders. Like, they give you like 10 attackers and like 8 healers and like 4 defenders, and it's like, what? Why are there so little? Because it's Mio, Lanz, Ashira, Monica, Xeon, and Triton. Those classes, because Tritons can act as anything, are I think the only defenders in the game. I don't think I missed anyone. I have the game here. I could just load up and make sure that I'm not talking out my ass. But damn, it annoys me in a way that it shouldn't, that there are not that many defenders. Like, I know they already have the teaser for the first DLC hero coming. I want that hero to be a defender. Like, seriously, if they're not a defender, I'll be sad. Like, legit, I want a defender. I want more defenders. They're not enough. I rely on them. My favorite setup for the party is 2 attackers, 2 healers, 3 defenders. Because, wow. Aggro in this game is nuts, and if you let your healers and attackers get aggroed, they die in like seconds. I am still amazed at how quickly attackers die. Like, even now. Like, I know it's like, well, you're fighting level 99, level 100 enemies now in post-game. I'm like, but it's been like that the entire game. I can understand healers folding the second someone looks at them. That's a healer. But wow, attackers. Like, it's really annoying when I'm playing as, like, Ethel's class, for instance, because she draws aggro like a bitch. Her attacks are so aggressive. Or Alexandria's class, which is all about crits. That draws aggro like crazy. Like, literally, there have been so many instances where I'm playing those classes, I get into a fight, I hit an enemy with an art, they turn to me, they hit me, take out 75% of my health, hit me again and kill me. There was an instance where I was playing as an attacker, and just every single fight started that way, with me just having to wait for someone to revive me. It got to the point where I would rather play defenders, because at least that way I know that you're supposed to attract aggro. And I'm like, I know you're saying like, well, stop attracting aggro when you start the fight. I don't think it's totally my fault, but even if it is, I mean, come on. It's absurd how quickly you go down as an attacker. And I get that the point is that they shouldn't be targeted, but I still find it ridiculous how squishy they are, as a personal point. So yeah, I play as defenders almost all the time now. Sometimes I'll try a healer, just to see if I can effectively guard someone, but yeah, no, I'm looking at the heroes, I was right, yeah. Xeon, Monica, Ashira, Triton, and then the main 2 are the only defenders in the game, so just 6 defender classes. By comparison, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 attackers, if you count Triton, because he is an attacker, and his class can work as an attacker, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 healers, once again counting Triton. And then 6 defenders, once again, counting Triton. So yeah, I think it's a little absurd. I think that there should maybe be less attackers and more defenders or something, or just more defenders. I mean, don't take away attackers or healers, but give me more defenders, because I love playing as them. My 2 favorite heroes in the game are defenders. Ashira, second fave, is a dodge tank, and then Monica, absolute favorite hero. She is a what's the other one? Just a tank? Does it have a specific thing? A hit tank? I don't know. The one that they take damage because they have an absurd amount of health. She's got like 11,000 health. And a really high block rate, I think. 72%. So like, yeah. Fucking wow. So, yeah. She's in my party like 90% of the time. Alright, that was a bit of a tangent about the classes. I got distracted. If you heard a bell, that was my pizza. Anyway, so I did want to go back and hit on tutorials. I mentioned that. I remember that. I hate the tutorials in this game so freaking much. I hate this specific format of tutorial. The one in which you're like, okay, we're going to show you how to do something. Now hit this button to open the menu. Now scroll to this option. Now select this option. Now go here. Now select this. Okay, now do this. Right, now close the menu. And then like 5 minutes later, let's do that again. Like, it's tedious, it's annoying, it's terrible, it's horrible. And it's all because people couldn't fucking read Xenoblade 2 tutorials. It's your fault for glancing at the text instead of reading it, closing it, and then moving on. Because fucking hell, I would greatly prefer Xenoblade 2 tutorials again over this nonsense. I hate it. There's so many games that do this kind of thing, and I don't like it. And someone else pointed out that one thing that really sucks about it is that, like, there's a tutorial for putting an accessory on Noah to show you how to put accessories on, which is like standard RPG fare. And they're like, okay, open the menu, go to accessories, put this on Noah. Cool, now close the menu. And it's like, well, no, I want to, if I have any other accessories I might have picked up, can I put them on the rest of my body? The game's like, nope, you gotta close the menu. Nope, you can't go over to lands. You can't go over to uni. No, can't do that. Stop trying to do that. Close the menu. Okay, now you close the menu. Now you can open it up and set everyone up again. It's freaking obnoxious. Like, it's bad, and I hate it. No way. I don't care. I've been watching someone play Xenoblade 1 again, and I'm like looking at those tutorials. I'm like, yeah, these aren't bad. And I had no issue with Xenoblade 2 tutorials. I know people are gonna doubt that, but I really didn't. I had no issue whatsoever. I read them, I was like, this is what you do, and then I played the game, and I did it the way that the game told me to do it. And I was fine for all 100, 200, 300 hours that I played Xenoblade 2. I don't remember how much it was. It was a few hundred, though, for sure. I will admit, the only thing I forgot how to do in Xenoblade 2 that I needed to look up later was how to trigger the double level 4 special art that you get at the end of the game. And that was it. I just forgot the exact way you're supposed to trigger that, and it wasn't even that hard. That's it. It's like, I mean, the only other thing I ever forgot was how to use the follow ball in X, but I mean, whatever. So, yeah, I hated the tutorials. They were obnoxious, they were bad, and I'm glad that they ended when they did, because I hated them. Anyway, so aside from that, where can I go to next to talk about something? I briefly hit on the characters. Hit on the villains, hit on the classes, hit on the gameplay, I think. I do like that they have the two branches of break, topple, launch, smash, and break, topple, daze, burst. I think that's cool. Even though, like, it took forever for the game to give me any burst moves. Like, I think the only burst move you have for most of the game is Tion's Ouroboros one. And then eventually you get the Miyabi burst move, Way Home. And I think Mio's second special art is the one she gets after chapter 5 is the or after chapter 6, I mean. No, chapter 5 is also a burst. There's just not a lot of bursting, but yeah. I mean, geez, I don't know why recently I've been using, because I use Monica all the fucking time because I love her. So she's in my party 90% of the time, and I don't care if there's another hero that's more effective, like, I'm sticking to her. She has Smash on her move list, which is great. Everyone can inherit Mighty Beat and then get a Smash move, so it's crazy. Man, I don't, like, just Smash damage is so satisfying. Like, hitting someone and watching a giant chunk of HP just disappear is fantastic. I kind of wish it worked still like Xenoblade 2, where when they hit the ground, their items come flying out of them. But it doesn't do that anymore. Burst is the one that gives you drops, not Smash. And I'm just like, oh. I mean, it's still funny. And especially when you do it on giant enemies, because when they hit the ground, there's like whoosh, like the slam sound effect is super loud. And I think that's cool. That's great. I love that. But yeah, I love using the routes. They have a menu. Also, I didn't know this. I played Torna once. I love the fuck out of it. I've been meaning to do it again. I've been meaning to go back to it and like level up, max out my crew, and then take on the gold monsters. I've been meaning to do that. I just haven't. I figure once I'm done with 3 completely, I'll go back to Torna. And I don't know if I want to do post game Torna or if I just want to do a new game plus on Torna. But regardless, I didn't know, because this is a thing that with 3. Up until yesterday, I think it was, Manana's cooking didn't work. The only part of Manana's cooking that worked was a collectible boost. Nothing else did. Now it does, though, which is great. I was able to get to 99 super fast thanks to that. But I didn't know that in Torna, the command menu in battle doesn't work. To be honest, it's been so long since I played Torna, I don't even remember if I used that menu. I don't even remember what that menu did. But apparently, to this day, it still doesn't do what it says it does, which is kind of crazy. Small aside, just something that I learned when I learned that Manana's cooking doesn't work, and I was like, weird. Yeah, I love the combat. I love fighting. Like, I enjoy, like, apparently it's an issue people don't like that bosses take so long, and I'm like, I like it. I like getting into a boss fight and having a big, long slugfest with them. You know, I don't like, what's the word? I don't like getting to a boss and taking them out super quick. And I spent a lot of the game over-leveled after, I think, Chapter 3? Or during 4? I can't remember. But, I mean, over-leveled... Yeah, during the... Not the final. The Queen Nia fight and the... Well, the fake Queen Nia fight and the end fight. I think I was, like, 5 or 6 levels over them. Which was kind of tough. That said, even when I was over-leveled, some bosses still beat me. Yorin beat me the first time I fought him. He has this move where he flies in the air and he hits everyone, and it just does a ton of damage, I think. I don't know if it causes any status effects or state effects, but it sucked. And Queen Nia, the fake Queen Nia in the machine, during our first fight, she did an attack that just killed both my healers, and then I was fucked. Because only healers can res. So it just like eventually everyone just died off, and then I had to restart. So yeah, I did like that. Even being over leveled, there's still some things that can freakishly happen, or things can just go badly, you know. And it's just like, wow, I like that. You know, everything was still tough in a way. And it's funny because like the recommended level for the final chapter of the game is 55, but by the time you get to the ending and the final boss, they're actually level 75, I think. Yeah, the final boss is 75, and the enemies towards the end of the game are in the 70 range. So actually, the speed at which the levels, the enemy levels increased, caught up to my characters. So as I went through the final dungeon, I actually became on level with all the enemies around, and everything leading up to the finale was tough. Zed, geez, that final boss, he had... I don't know if it's that he had a lot of health, or if... Or maybe he had health gates. Maybe that's what it was. I think that's what it was. Where at a certain point, he would just not lose any more health, and until an event happened. Granted, he kept using the shield that would heal him for as much damage. I think the final battle was less of a fight and more of a event, I guess. I don't actually know what to call it, but it was crazy. It was long. The entire final sequence was long. I saved it from a day off, and it was just I started from invading Origin, doing the whole dungeon, the final boss, the ending. I did all that in one sitting, and it was long. Like, I did not expect it to take as long as it did. Mainly because I was, the enemies were getting stronger. And by the time they caught up to me, I was like, okay, every single fight is, it's a trial. But it was enjoyable. I did like that it did become tougher by the end. I was glad that I wasn't so absurdly overleveled, that it wasn't, difficult, so to speak. I enjoyed that last section. Geez, I don't think I talked enough about exploring. I mentioned I like doing it. I like the areas in the game. Some areas I wish were bigger, though. Like, let's see. I think I like Aisha, or Aita, Ashia? I don't know what they call it. The first region. Fornus is really wide. I like Fornus a lot. I think my favorite thing about Fornus is the Danaw Desert to the side. It's a completely optional location. You don't ever have to go to the desert for the story. It's just a site for quests or exploring. And the level range of the enemies there are slightly above the rest of Fornus. So if you're doing the story stuff in the Fornus region, starting from everything with Colony 4, Ethel, and Consul K, up until Valdi, Colony 30, and then leaving the area to go to Pentelis, I think is next. I think it's next. Right? I forget. If you do everything before you leave the area, you can double back and go back to Dana, and now you'll be on level with it, which is what I was. And then I just went and I started exploring the desert, and it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. I was kind of hoping there would be more areas like that, more entire sections of map that are not pivotal to the story. And in some ways there are. Not as in-depth. Like, when you're going to go to the Urian tunnels, I think there's another path that takes you to a different region. Or at least a different part of the region. But they don't let you go that way because it's too direct or something. But if you go, that's the way that I think leads to Colony 5. And that route, you can come back and go there later, and that area is kind of wide, and it leads to the bridges with all the Levnesses on the other side of the canyon, where the fight against Piando is. I'm sure people know what I'm talking about. And I just like having these alternate little areas that you can go to later and explore, and I wish there was more, and I wish they were bigger, just because I loved exploring. It was so much fun. Granted, I guess they gave that to us with like the level 90 caves, which crazy. Let's see what else we got. Okay, right, Pantelis? I think that's it. I think that's the one that starts in the Urian tunnels, then comes out into the waterfalls, and then goes into Mactha, and then goes into the city. Like, yeah, that whole area has so much in it, but I don't feel like all the sections are big enough. Like, the waterfall section, I think, is a decent size. Lower Mactha kind of makes up for the rest of Mactha being fairly small, but I just wish they were bigger. Like, the Urian tunnels, I was so excited to do it because you were going inside Uriah, and I kind of realized that the inside of Uriah, the architecture and everything in there looked like buildings from Fonsa Mima, and I was like, this is so cool. I wish there was more going on inside of Uriah, because it's really quick to get through, and then you get out to the whole thing with Colony Lambda and Izzard and Yorin, and then after that it's going through Mactha Wildwood, which is Mactha Forest and Moritha, which is freaking nuts. And that's where you get the Colony Tau stuff, Juniper, and then you move on. And after the Juniper stuff, like, Mactha is very small. Like, it's actually really small, and I was kind of let down by that, especially in comparison to the Mactha Forest from 1. And then the Land of Moritha is pretty small end too. It is, but even then I think Moritha was bigger than what actually constitutes the Mactha region in 3. And I was really hoping for more. I mean, once again, Lower Mactha kind of makes up for it for being so darn wide and full of really tough enemies and having level 90 cave down there. But I do still wish base Mactha was bigger. Especially once you get to the city towards the end that then opens up to the plateau with the P&O fight. Which that was cool. I was really confused by, like, I mean, just the whole section with Moebius, P, and O, and when they fuse into their own, like, united form, and Mio punches them, and they go flying. I'm like, could she always do that? Are the main characters just, are they just normally this powerful? I just chalk it up to the enemy being completely distracted and not paying attention, and Mio being Mio. But, okay, I'll accept it. It was cool. And, I mean, the whole time that was happening, the whole time that they were talking about, look how amazing and perfect we are, I was like, someone's gonna hit them, someone's gonna do something, because they're gloating way too hard for someone not to take the chance to hit them. So I was glad that that didn't happen. One thing I will say, complete side note, is that there are some times in the story where, especially early on, where Noah wants to off-see whatever it is they just killed, and Lance is so against the idea of off-seeing, even from before when they squad up. I thought it was a weird line. In after the first battle, when it's all done and all the bodies are left behind, Noah off-sees everyone, all the Kavis and Agnes soldiers from the opening fight, right? And Lands, like, he displays some annoyance as to why he would off-see the Agnians, and I don't understand, like, can you choose what you want to off-see or not? Like, if Noah was standing in front of just a pile of Agnians and Kevesians, like just like 80 of them, just in a giant mountain of husks, could he just off-see like the 35 Agnians that are in there? Like, can he do that? Can he play so specifically to avoid all the Kevesi? Or vice versa? Like, I don't know, I thought that was a weird thing for Lance to say. I get that he doesn't want to off-see the Agnians because they're the enemy and he doesn't like them. But I don't think that's something that Noah can pick to do if the bodies are all around him. Or at least the game has never shown that that's possible. It's just something that came to mind because I was thinking of all the cool scenes in the game when Noah or Mio or both of them off-see husks. Speaking of, I actually have no idea if I've off-seen all the husks in the game. I don't think there's a notification that tells you if you have, but the last ones I found were in the demi-human gutter in Cadencia. There's 2 big piles of bodies in there, and I don't know if there's any more anywhere else. I wonder if someone knows if there's. I'll have to ask about that, but that was crazy. That I mean, it was a weird thing, but that's fine. What's after Pentelis? Does Pentelis go right into the Kavis Castle region? I have the game. What am I doing? I can just open up the map in the game. I'm like trying to rely on my shitty memory, and I have a map right here. Here we go. So yeah, it's Aisha, Fornis, Pentelis, yeah, Caves Castle region. With the Hovering Reefs and not Alchemoth, and then Cadencia, right. So, yeah, compared to... So the Caves Castle region is pretty small, but I just liked it because of how it brought Erisea to mind. It had the Hovering Reefs and everything. And the entire sequence of going into Caves Castle to destroy the... what's it called? The Annihilator. That was really fun. Like I just liked going through the castle, fighting the uniques. I was of a decent level to be able to take on all the uniques in there, including the double unique and the triple unique that was in the castle. It was really intense fights, but I really loved them. All leading up to the gigantic cutscene with the group fighting V and J, Dirk and Yorin, and like that was freaking nuts. Like everything about that fight. Like the animations of the fight and just the actual fight itself, just everything was cool. That was a really great sequence. And it was another example as to why Mondo is broken and should be banned forever, because wow. I really enjoyed that sequence. And it was a payoff for Uni as well, since, gosh, that was spooky. Just I can't imagine what it's like to stumble across your own dead body. That was a twist. When Uni found like a previous Uni husk in the old kind of battlefield, and it like led to her freaking out and having nightmares about like her previous self. That was uncool, to say the least. Like it was a great story moment. It was really sad. There's a lot of cool stuff for Uni and for the lore of the world, and it's what got me to believe that, like, I mean, a lot of people kind of called N just being another Noah, just based off his official art, because they were like, well, I mean, that's clearly Noah. I was like, is it though? And then it's like, yeah, it is. It definitely is. And once I got introduced to the idea of another Uni, I'm like, so there's another Noah, but why does he exist as a Moebius? Yet he also exists as just a guy. Just a guy. So there was that. And Caves Castle is where you find out that the queens are actually fake. It is Melia, it is Nia, but this Melia is a robot. I'm like, wow, they went with the robot reveal. That's funny. Created by the Moebius to control people. I mean, I think N even calls it an Aegis. I thought they needed an Aegis for the people, which I thought was a cool choice of words, obviously. And N has his own sword identical to Noah's. Clearly looks like him. So I expected N to be Noah, and when he takes off the visor to fully show that he has the same face, I'm like, yeah, I thought that coming. And then when M comes from off screen and it's Mio, I'm like, wait, what? It's so funny that N was so obvious that I was not prepared for M. They mentioned that M, I think there's a cutscene earlier that talks about M, and that she's always around N, or that she's important or something like that. I think the other Moebius are like jealous of her or something. And I wasn't sure who she would be, because at the same time the story was introducing the idea that, because it was after you found out Jay was Yorin, and then Mio told you about Miyabi, her off-scene partner. And so I was just kind of thinking, so is M Miyabi? And that was where my brain was going, but I wasn't sure. They clearly introduced those events in order like that to throw it off, because it definitely threw me off. I didn't see the other Mio reveal coming at all. But also, like, exploring Caves Castle, getting like all these floors of chaos, just kind of reminds you how Agnes Castle is a letdown, given that it has one tiny area and all you do is fight 2 bosses, and then that's it. It's just there's quests there later and blah blah blah, but nothing else. Cadencia is another. I know this is gonna sound super like, wait, what are you talking about? Cadencia is another region I wish was bigger, and people are like, are you? It's gigantic, and you're right. Like, I'm looking at the full map right now. It's massive. Cadencia is absurdly huge. There's so many cool islands to go to, so much to explore. This is where I think most of my game time wound up being, and I think for everyone too. Once you hit the ocean, it's just gigantic. I wish the first area was larger. The area leading up to Sword March, the swamp, I wish the swamp was bigger. I wish there was more swamp to explore. Like, even an optional swamp area before you got to Sword March that you could go into later. I wish there was more swamp. That's my one thing. But Cadencia is huge. It's full of crazy stuff, like a lot of quests. You get 3 more heroes here, including Monica, who's the fucking best. No one will ever convince me otherwise. She's in my party right now still, like I said, because of course she is. And I love her. And anyway, scratch that. It's crazy. Like, man, so many hours to get to Sword March and the city, which is where Fandom sent you to, or told you to go at the beginning of the game. getting to the city was great. Getting to like go up the giant sword, Makana's sword, and go to the city and meet people. It was like the scenes when Monica is showing you around the city and telling you what the world is supposed to be like and about the founders, like those kind of blew my mind, because somehow it didn't connect with me how different and sheltered in a way the main cast and everybody who fights this war, this endless war, is. Because like she introduces herself, I believe, as Guernica's daughter, as Vandam's daughter. And they don't know what that means. They don't know what children are. They don't know what old people are, which has been made clear for most of the game, actually. They don't know what aging is. They don't know what spouses are. They don't know what romance is. They don't know how kids are born. And like every time that that Monica said something and the group just reacted like, "What are you talking about?" I was just more consistently blown away. And I guess it made more sense looking at it from this perspective. Like, it already made sense, but it just really brought back to mind why Vandam did what he did for these kids who don't know jack shit about what it means to live. Because, wow, they literally don't know anything. And it's crazy. Like, seriously, that scene early on where Noah looks at a bunch of Armu, and he sees a small one, the bigger one, then the really big one. And he's like, "Is that what aging is?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, he doesn't know what that is." Wow, you know, it's like such a small thing to be surprised by, but I was legit surprised by it, and it felt weird. But yeah, I liked being in the city, and I liked all those scenes. I like when they meet the baby, and like, as a lot of people say, it's like it's the moment when, after how long the journey's been, I think it's only really when they reach the city when Noah and Mia look at each other, and then they're just like, "Oh, that's what we were feeling." And I saw a tweet like that about that moment where I think they see a couple kiss and they look at each other, and it's like it just connects everything that they've been feeling, just all of a sudden makes sense. And I like that Monica knows it too when she says that maybe you guys will figure it out, or maybe you already have, because she remembers how Noah and Neo acted when they first met in the swamp. And I just thought that was nice. That was a good moment. I just really liked it. Like, I mean, yeah. So, I'm kind of hitting on like some of the notes of the story as I'm going through all the regions. I should have done this from the start. Cadencia has a lot going on. There's a lot to explore. It also took me a while to realize. I don't think it connected with me when I first saw the scene. But I don't remember when I realized it, that Vandam's buddies, Yu and Zuo, who also die in the opening, are named after Yu and Zuo from 2, who are his same buddies, the ones who continue to run Gothfront mercenaries after he dies, along with Rex. And I'm just like, that's cool. That's a cool nod. That it didn't connect with me in the moment when they got shot and he yelled out their names. It wasn't until later that I realized who they were, or at least who they represented. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah, going through Cadencia, going to breaking into a prison to free Gondor. And I dislike Gondor heavily. Like, of course, like, I mean, it's obvious. I love Monica. She's my favorite of all the heroes. And so having another character just treat her so poorly, or at least talk about her so derisively, was just like, no, you're not doing yourself any favors. I think talking about that, I think it's weird that, like, I wanted to hold off judgment on Gondor completely until I had all the pieces, but the game doesn't really give you many. People said, no, when you do Monica's quest or Gondor's quest, Hero Quest, Hero Ascensions, you get more about why they treat each other, or not why they, but why Gondor treats her that way. And there's like 2 bits of dialogue in each one that maybe hint to it. In Gondor's quest is when the Turkin's dying and she's freaking out about it, like, you can't leave these kids alone. That's possible she felt that way when her dad died, but that wouldn't have been Monica's fault. And then in Monica's story, she mentions that she's the leader of the city and she's Gondor's mom, but she can't be both. So she never gave Gondor any preferential treatment. But I don't buy that Gondor would react the way that she does to that. Like, the way I saw it, my go-to reason for why Gondor was the way she is simply the same trope you see all the time, which is my parents were too busy doing something important to treat me like they're a child, and so I hate them. And it's like, it's a trope that I just don't like. I know that they should try, but look at the city and what Monica and her husband had fought for, what everyone else was fighting for to establish against Moebius. I think you can give them a little bit of leeway. Now, the game never says that that's a reason why, and it never really goes into too much depth for it. And Monica herself never reacts to Gondor calling her bitch queen, so it's like, it doesn't bother her. And so they don't, at least as far as I'm aware, I guess that's just what you're supposed to extrapolate from their interactions. But the rest of their interactions are great. Like, it's a really small one, but at the end of Senna's side story, after Shania dies, and her mom comes over to, like, I guess mock her, like, Gondor gets all upset, but Monica steps in to just get the mother away by not saying anything. She just puts her hand on her shoulder, and it's like, okay, I should leave now. And I like that moment, because, like, Gondor calls her mom, and she says, I have food waiting at home, let's go eat. And it's just, it's nice. And then the same for the Miyabi Ascension quest, with just the way that they talk to each other there. I'm like, I would have loved to see more of this. And so at the end, after that, I've actually grown to like Gondor a bit more. Like, I just, they never properly explained to me what the issue was, but seeing what their relationship is and how they both deal with it, I'm kind of happy with that. It's like, I went so in depth into these two out of all the heroes in the game, obviously because Monica's my favorite. And her attachment to Gondor means that I should talk about them both to an extent. But I do enjoy the heroes as a whole. Like I said, I like the concept of classes, and the heroes are cool and colorful. I say gotta talk about Ethel later. It's like, Valdi, I think, is cute. His Ascension quest has a problem that a few of them do have. I mean, not his hero quest is a problem that a few of them do have, where it's a little too fast paced. There was zero reason why he should be attached to Mecha Friend, and why Mecha Friend being destroyed should matter, because it just got created like 5 minutes ago. Xeon's cool. Everything about Xeon, like his hero quest, everything about him, like he's just a chill guy. I like him. He's awkward in how he interacts. Teach is among my favorites. I love Teach. Like, he's really cool. His Ascension quest, where you find out about Oleg, who he once was very cool. Riku and Manana, awesome. They're really great Nopon buddies. I don't understand why they went for such a deep voice for Riku, but I'm totally cool with it. He's chill. Gray is really cool too. It was I liked finding out that he's actually from the city, because I was wondering where he was from. He definitely didn't strike me as a Kavesi or an Agnian guy when I first met him. Izzard, I think Izzard's funny, not as in humorous, but it's interesting that all the main heroes in the game and characters are drawn by Saito, the same character designer from 2's main cast, but all the other ones are just drawn by different Monolith Soft illustrators, I guess. Izzard is the weirdest one to me, because like the main cast, Ethel, Cammuravi, Monica, who else? I don't know. I think that's it. Like, it makes sense that they're designed by Saito. Izzard less so? I would say, like, yeah, but he's in the main story. I'm like, sure, you have to pass by him in the main story, but you know who else you have to pass by and interact with in the main story? Valdi and Juniper. And neither of them are designed by Saito. It's weird. It's a weird choice. But I mean, I like Izzard. Izzard's chill. He and Teach, like, whenever I was having a hard time in battles, in boss fights, I needed to retry, I would usually swap him in as a third healer on my team. I think I did Teach more than I did Izzard, but they were just handy to have. Juniper's cool. I like Juniper. Even though I can't use the class to save my life. There's one of the bow moves that involves the character like turning around super slowly before firing off a single shot. I forget what that move's called, but I try to avoid putting it on anyone because I don't know what the point of it is. It's so slow. Ashira's my second favorite hero. Meeting her was fucking rad. Like, she's just so cool. Her quest is awesome. I love her voice. Like, everything about her personality was cool. And I liked her. And then the Ascension quest came and just more. So she went from 10 out of 10 to 11 out of 10. And I'm just like, which is fitting. Colony 11. Alexandria is also very cool. I like Alexandria a lot. her quest was kind of nuts because I actually went about it hunting down all her squad mates. I think the first two I took on were over leveled. Like, they were stronger than me, way stronger than me. Those fights were tense. And then as I fought more of them, they gave me so much EXP, they helped me level up. They made the next ones easier until I got to her colony and I beat her. Apparently, I found out later that if you don't take out her teams, they'll all be there when you go to fight her. And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. I kind of wish I had done that instead. Monica. I love Monica. All right. That's all. Moving on. Fiona. Fiona's cool. I like Fiona. I think I say that for all of them. They're all cool or something, but I really did like Fiona. Her thing... Hang on. Did I pass by anyone else whose quest? I thought Juniper's hero quest was also a little rushed. Fiona's was a little awkward in the opening. Just finding her and, like, going into, like, this intense monologue about how her colony's in danger was a little strange. I think parts of the beginning of that quest felt like we started in the middle of it. I mean, obviously something was already happening when the party showed up, but it was just a little awkward. But once it got going and once you got to the colony and you were meeting how weird Colony Mew was and everything with Irma was fantastic. The closing out for that quest, I was like, I forgot completely about how awkward the beginning was, and I'm just like, this is like the best one, I think. Like, in terms of just the emotional weight and everything surrounding Fiona and Irma's relationship was very sad. Because after the quest ended, like, I go around town and I see some of the NPCs have little thought bubbles that pop up, and a lot of them were very devastated to hear about Irma. None of them knew she was a consul, but it was still very, very heavy. Triton was a lot of fun. Triton's just chill. I thought it was cool. Like, I heard people talking about this, like, seafaring hero, but I didn't know what they were talking about specifically. Like, there was a lot of memes about Man of the Sea and booty all over Twitter, and I had no idea what was going on. Then I met Triton, and I did his whole quest. It was just a blast. Absolutely love Triton. He's funny. His Ascension quest is just hilarious. Gondor. I already talked about Gondor plenty. Gondor. Miyabi. That's not a negative pause. It's not like I'm about to say something I don't like about her. That was just because I was thinking about Miyabi and all the events surrounding Miyabi. Because Miyabi, apparently, they say that she died. They never show it, but I think they're supposed to imply that the last time Mio saw her, she died. Which we're supposed to believe, and then she was revived by Consul Y at Colony Omega, along with Mwamba, the hero who starts in your party at the beginning of the game, hacked his equivalent for Mio's team, and Cammuravi. Oh, Cammuravi. I don't think I can talk about you yet. Sagiri's the last one of the game ones. And yeah, I thought it was cool because, like, you can see the silhouettes on the class screen, and I noticed the last one was like this big bulky looking thing. And when I ran into the Colony Zero Pharaons, I was like, is that what that is? Is that going to be a buddy of ours? Because you run into only one at the first time, but then later on you run into, I think, 2 or 3, and I'm like, wait, is it going to be that? And then when you do the Sagiri quest and they reveal that they're basically like face mech on, like tiny face mech on. What was it, Consul F, I think? No, he's, I think, one of the only ones you don't fight. He just gets killed in the cutscene. Asshole. Yeah, Sagiri's funny. Like, just in her way that she's trying to learn how to be more human, I guess. Because they all act very... Well, I mean, she's like the only one of her colony that acts super robotic. Everyone else is definitely more emotional in certain ways. Especially, I think, 9 is the one who gets really mad at everything. But I like her, too. And then post-game for the last 2. Which it's a lot to cover. So I think now that I've covered the heroes, I think I can go into one of the things I didn't like about the game. Oh boy. I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't even know if it counts as that. It's just how I feel. After chapter 4, I had a lot of thoughts. Which chapter 4, I believe, is the one. It ends after Keves Castle, I think. But before you get there, there's the boss fight against Ethel and Cammuravi, where their life has been hooked up to their pharaons, to the pharaonis that they're riding in as they're fighting you.
It's good to keep a record.
Before they decide instead to fight each other, because that's what they want to do. That's like what their life's about. They just want to have one final battle with each other, and they wind up killing each other, and they both die. And I'm like, you killed off Ethel? What? And I had a lot of thoughts about it in that moment. As the game went on, I had a lot more thoughts about it. And I kept thinking about it. Like, every time they talked about it again, about Ethel's death, and I'm like, that's bullshit. And they kept hitting on it. And then we got to the castle, and we found the little Ethel in the pod, and I was just like, I don't like where this is going, and I don't want it to happen. And the Ethel pod came with us all the way to the city. And then we bumped into the console Y section for the Mio story, and they brought back Miyabi, Mwamba, Hacked, and Cammuravi. And I was like, is this leading to getting Ethel back? And I'm just like, I don't want that though. And everything about recruiting this new Cammuravi and these new guys, and for some reason the fact that Miyabi is the only one who regains everything. Like, Miyabi acts as if the Miyabi that Mio lost is back completely. And yet Mwamba, Hacked, and Cammuravi are not. They're there alive, identical to the ones lost, but they don't remember anything. Even though Mwamba mentions Noah and Mia before they break through the crazy Y brainwashing nonsense that he did. And then Ethel's back, and she's tiny, and she also doesn't remember anything, so she's a first-termer. And then eventually, for the only other quest you get for Cammuravi and Ethel is to put Ethel in a forced growth pod to make her back to, I think she's 10th term? 9th or 10th term? To her body, to how she looked before. And then she's in your body again. Which, funniest lie in the world, after you lose Ethel, after Colony 4, and they say she'll be temporarily unavailable. It's like 130 hours later for me, I can finally use her again. I'm saying all this to say, I don't like anything about how Ethel was treated by the game. I hate all of it. From the moment of her death that I absolutely hated, to this weird teasing of bringing her back, to not committing to bringing her back, to completely shoving under the floorboards everything that happened prior, only used for flashbacks. I was just very not happy with it. And I've thought about it so much every time I think about the game, and it's always a part that I come back to and I just dislike. Like, if the most way I can express it is that I feel like Ethel was disrespected by the game, if I be completely honest. That's the word that comes to mind. I just don't think she was used right at all, and is disappointing to me. Like I said, I went into the game being like, Ashira's gonna be my favorite. Well, I don't know if I said that here on video, but just when I saw her in the trailer, I liked her design, like the personality she presented, and I'm like, cool. Looking forward to meeting Ashira. Met her, cool. Then I met Monica, and I was like, Ashira, you're still cool. But before that, I was interested in what kind of character Ethel would be, and the trailers with her, I thought she would be more of an overarching villain, so to speak. But she's only there for chapter 3, I think it is, when she's in charge of Colony 4 and you meet her, and Kay manipulates everybody, controls them directly into fighting you. So she was never really against you. It's something he was forcing them all to do. And when you meet her, when they do those Colony 4 scenes with her and Borealis, like, she's nothing at all like what you would expect. She's not a cold, calculating person, which her design kind of elicits. She's very nice. She's very understanding, very kind. She's a great leader. And it's like, huh. I remember seeing comments of people being surprised that that was her personality. Not in a negative way, but just like, wow, she's cool. You know, and then after you help her out and you free Colony 4 and you're talking to her and everything, it's just like, yeah, she's cool. I like her a lot. You know? And it's like, it's short moments that you're with her, and then you do her hero quest right after that as the game's tutorial for what hero quests are, basically. And you get to hang out with her a bit, keep helping her help Colony 4. It's really cool. And then she goes off to the castle with Borealis, and you lose her forever because you never get Ethel back. The tiny Ethel, that's not Ethel. You lose Ethel forever. She goes off. She decides to fight Cammuravi to death in front of P&O, and then she's gone. And that investment has been cashed in, and it is now gone. You can't redo the character. You can't bring back another character that looks like her with any preconceived idea of continuing that investment, because that's not the character. That isn't her. It's just someone who looks like her, acts like her a little bit, maybe. I don't know, because the only scenes you get with little Ethel are there at the end of that quest when she talks to Cammuravi, and then when you walk around town with Cammuravi, he'll comment about her, how she's learning and fighting, and then you get the really tiny moment at the end of, I don't even want to call it an ascension quest, because it's not. But when she gets bigger and she talks to Cammuravi. And it's very, very little that you get of the new Ethel. But I can't reconcile it in my brain as a decision that I liked. Because I feel like it's banking on just, you had investment in the character, so be invested again. Even though we got rid of that character you were invested in. And it's like, well, how would you fix it? It's like, I don't know. Because if they were to bring her back and she's the exact same as the one, like if it is the Ethel that you lost and she's back as completely unchanged, because the issue with that will become that I'm sure a lot of people would say, it's like, well, then what was the point of killing her off if you're just going to revive her, you know? And it's like, well, then that scene now no longer has any weight. I agree with you there. And yet doing it this way, I'm not happy with it. And so it's like, so then what's the resolution? I'm like, I don't know. The only other choice, if it's not reviving her as someone else, reviving her as herself, the only other choice is just not bringing her back at all. Would you have been fine with that? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. Although I know that it can't be that way because it's a gameplay mechanic to be able to have Ethel in your party. And I'm like, okay, then when you beat the game, just have you be able to use her again. It's gameplay and story separation, because no one will ever comment on the fact that she's back again. But there's that, I guess, as an alternative. Or, you know, just don't kill her off in the first place, I guess. But I will admit that the characters, because of how they reference her death, is like what happened to her, is, I guess, important moving forward for what the characters do and how they present their ideals and their decisions. So I guess that couldn't be a choice for them either. So like, I've had this, I don't know if I could call it a rant. I have this discussion in my head with myself constantly since beating the game, and since actually chapter 4. Like, it's like, actually no, after chapter 4 I was just like, okay, that happened, and I just moved on with the game, and every so often the idea would spring back to mind. And now that I beat the game, it really is at the forefront as something that, no matter how I view it, how I approach it, I'm just unhappy with it. And ultimately, it's like, yeah, but you seem to be unhappy with every angle they could have taken with it. And I'm like, I guess, you know, I guess it's just how it is. So, there's, I guess, nothing really to say about that. It's just that I didn't like it. And I'm not happy with it. And it makes me sad. You know, so that's one thing. So that's one of my 3 negative things, is I didn't like what they did with Ethel. Second one, Lucky 7. I don't fucking get it. Like, I mean, look at the season pass image with the Monado, the Aegis sword, and the Lucky 7 next to each other. Or, well, the Veiled Noah's blade, and I think it's the Monado Rex, actually. But all those blades have history, lore, and reasons for why they are the way they are. The Monado is Providence. That thing can affect reality. It can do just about anything with ether because it can manipulate ether. The thing is nuts, and we know this from all of Xenoblade 1. The Monaro Rex is just a very advanced replica of that Shulk created for Future Connected. The Aegis sword is a part of Pyra, a part of Mithra, Numa. The Aegis, the Trinity processor, one of the Trinity processors that interacted with the conduit, the Zohar. It's a manifestation, it's a weapon created by this very powerful being that allows useful of very powerful powers, to say the least, is a part of them. What is Lucky 7? Lucky 7 is a sword crafted apparently by 7 legendary Nopon that can just cut anything. And that's it. Also, it gains a radar function to detect Moebius out of nowhere. That doesn't go explained. Like, look, I'm not kidding you. There's a quest that starts. I don't remember which quest it is. I forgot. But there's a quest that begins, and Noah just pulls out Lucky 7. He holds it in front of him, and he starts scanning. It starts vibrating. He's like, that way. And I'm like, fucking what? Like, I literally saw that scene, and I'm like, what? When? People are gonna say, oh, you're talking about Noah's side story, right? No, there was a different quest that started like that. And in Noah's side story, when he's trying to locate Chris, he does do that as well, before deciding to go to the castle. But it comes out of nowhere. It's never mentioned before. The only times, I guess it's supposed to be assumed because Lucky 7 does vibrate in the presence of N. But I figured that was more with the fact that Lucky 7 is vibrating in close proximity to another Lucky 7. So it's like, it's the same reason why I keep saying Noah and Mio get headaches when they're close to N and M. It's like, because they're the same person. And like being near yourself causes issues. You know, I could believe that. I would believe that that's the reason Lucky 7 is vibrating, as opposed to, oh, Lucky 7 is near a console, so now it's going to start vibrating. And now you can use it as a radar, inexplicably. And there's just something weird about the flame clocks. Like, when this was happening during the cave fight, and Noah and Mio became an Ouroboros and went to attack the flame clock, I'm like, here we go, I'm going to smash it, and it didn't work. I'm like, wait, it doesn't work? And none of the Ouroboros could affect it? I'm like, that's weird. And just Noah pulls out Lucky 7, which we were just told in the flashback can cut anything and destroys the flame clock, and I'm like, what? I was weirded out by that. I don't get it. I'm like, why can this thing do this? And I guess the explanation done with the game is that Lucky 7 is made of Origin metal, which is what was used to construct Origin, this super powerful sphere that was supposed to help the XC1 and 2 worlds merge together without wiping each other out. And so it's some weird, I don't know, strong metal that can just cut anything? I just don't buy it. I don't know. There's such the fact that Lucky 7 goes the entire game without a proper real explanation. At least nothing that they've ever said about the sword feels to me like a proper real explanation. Riku just having it and then just giving it to Noah, and Noah just being able to, like, why does his sword turn into a gauntlet when he uses it? Did he program his blade to do that? Can he do that? And like, maybe it's just a cool factor looking thing. I don't know. I guess it doesn't need to be explained, but anytime that they get close to maybe having a talk about Lucky 7, they just drop the conversation. Like, there's a moment, I think it's after chapter 5, where Noah is sitting with Riku and they're just having a chat. And he's like, how did you get this sword anyway? And Riku just doesn't respond. And he's like, what? Noah thinks I'm lying or that I'm hiding something? And Noah just decides to drop it right there. And Riku just, of course, doesn't push it. Because Riku's so weird. He's so strange. He shares a look with Melia in like one of the final cutscenes. And I'm like, what do you know, you little rat bastard? Like, and as if to add insult to injury, in the ending, Noah takes Lucky 7 out and throws it away, and I'm just like, okay, just all his secrets are gone. I'll just never learn about the sword. It's just gone now. Every time they said the sword of the beginning or the sword of the end or whatever it is about the sword that N has and the sword that Ouroboros Noah has, I'm just like, that means nothing to me because I don't understand what it is. So it's like, there's number 2. So I don't know if that's as much of a hot take as as Ethel, but I just don't understand Lucky 7. And finally, the last thing I didn't like, the last of the three things that, and it sounds like, wow, you're really going into depth of why you don't like these things, so I guess you didn't like the game. Like, no, I said I 90% love the game. It's just that when I present something that I dislike, it's easy to say I hated this and move on, or just present bad faith arguments, but I'm trying to explain my thought process and why I reached why I don't like these things, which is admittedly very hard for the Ethel thing, because it's, I think literally all it comes down to is just personal taste, or in this case, personal distaste. And then the Lucky 7 thing is just something mechanically and narratively I think they failed on. And now we come to the last thing I don't like. So I like the ending. The entire ending of the game was freaking phenomenal. I know I said that Noah throwing Lucky 7 pissed me off, but it wasn't about the ending that annoyed me. It was just about Lucky 7 that annoyed me. You want to know how to make the ending perfect and have me not complain about it? Take the post-credit scene out. And then I'm satisfied. I'm good. I'm no longer upset. When I first saw the post-credit scene, I didn't think anything negatively of it. I just thought, okay, so time is moving again. I guess the world is fine. Looks like it. We got all our kitties back. Everyone's happy. They're all going to see some fireworks, and then Noah hears Offseer music and he walks off. And I assume he's going to walk into Tiny Neo? And if not, maybe Chris. I don't know. Someone's off seeing. But he goes off to see it. And then it ends. And someone later pointed out that he actually like vanishes. I would play the scene, but unfortunately, in a move that I don't think is smart, the entire ending is in the event theater as a single video. So I would need to watch the whole ending just to get to that part. Which the last time a game did that, Xenoblade 2 actually did that also, with the Torna ending, where it's all one video. I wanted to replay it to catch the part where Pyrrhus shows up for like 2 seconds with Adam, and says bye to Laura and Jin, but I couldn't do that because, I mean, I did do that, but I had to go through the whole ending again to see it. Because I wanted to take a screenshot, that's all. For this, hearing people talk about the ending and what they believe it means is what now got me to dislike the post-credits scene intensely. Now, the reason that I had needed to watch the opening again and check to see if Alchemoth was a part of little Noah's world or not was because I thought for a brief second that XC3 World was actually a new one that was turned into Ionios by XC1 and 2 colliding with it. And then when they split up again and they go off in their own directions, the XC3 world from the intro continues as its own. I had that in my head for a bit, but now that I've seen the opening and I see that Alchemoth is clearly there, that means that Noah's home is the XC1 world. Okay. So, here's the easiest way I can illustrate why the post-credits scene, if what it's implying is true, pisses me off. So you have XC1 and 2, their worlds collide, and Ionios is created. Mia and Melia establish origin because if the worlds collided without it, they would have wiped each other out. So origin was there, from what I understand, or maybe someone will correct me, to act as a, what's the word? Like to more accurately, like just to make it so they don't get destroyed. Like Origin's like, we'll let them fuse together in a way that doesn't wipe anything out. Is what I thought the point of Origin was, right? And that's how Ionios was created. But apparently it was supposed to do something different. But the reason that Ionios was created as a result of this fusion was because of something Zed did. I'm sure someone can go into a bit more detail about that. Anyway, that happens. The entirety of XC3 happens. We defeat Zed and Moebius, and we free Origin to do its job, which I assume was to finish the proper merging of the worlds. That's what I thought Origin was going to do now that it was free of Zed's control and it could get back to working as Nia and Melia intended it to. But instead, for some reason, it's letting the worlds drift apart again. Like, instead of colliding, they're now phasing through each other and passing through each other. Is that what it was supposed to do, actually? Because I thought it was supposed to merge them. So for some reason in the ending, the world split up instead, and all our characters are split up between those from Kevis and those from Agnes, as the two separate worlds of XC1 and XC2 drift away. And now, it seems to imply with this ending of Little Noah in Kevis that the events of XC3 are now just gone. And if you need me to explain why that pisses me off, it goes back to the Ethel thing. I was invested in Noah, Neo, Lance, Uni, Senna, and Tyon, and everybody that I met in the XC3 world across the story to the end when they separated the worlds. If you want me to believe that because they separated the worlds that they undid everything and that the XC3 is just gone now and everybody has been restored to how they were before the merging, and that now we have like Little Noah, Little Lance, Little Uni, Yorin, and possibly the Agnians are now Little now. That's not them, which is what annoys me. It's like now we were stuck with a tiny Noah in the post-credit scene who isn't Noah. That's not the Noah that, in my case, I spent 110 hours with. It's not the Lance, it's not the Uni, the Mio, the Tyon, the Senna. It's just someone who looks like him, who's gonna get to go on and live a full life now that the worlds, I guess, are right. And I just need to accept that everything that I did in Ionios is just gone forever. And I've seen people say that it kind of relates to the theme, or that it's like, yeah, XC3 is gone, but you still have the memory of it happening, or something like that, or it did occur, or they saved the world, or this or that. I'm like, but they're gone. And I'm not happy about that. Like, it's something that, it's less so than the Ethel thing because I can't reconcile this. This is something I just fundamentally disagree with as a good outcome. I don't find it to be that. It annoys me. It annoys me so much that I'm like, in my own little personal headcanon, I am going to believe that the world of Ionios continues off in its own direction. We already have a universe split in 2. What's a universe split in 3? And I just imagine that there is a world out there, or 4, I guess, more accurately, since Agnes and Kevis separated. There's a world out there where our cast still lives in their own separated world, satisfied, I guess, in knowing that there's peace and that we don't have to deal with Moebius nonsense anymore. Like, that's how I reconcile with it in my head, because I refuse to believe that this was a wipe it all out, it's gone, it never happened ending, because I don't like those kinds of endings. It's like, see, you see my problem, yes? So, before the post-credits scene, I just believe that the worlds drift apart, and now the Noah, Lance, Uni, we know are on one, the Mio, Senna, Tyon, we know are on another, with the assorted queens, with the assorted heroes, with the assorted colonies, and they're gonna drift apart and live lives free of Moebius, which is what they all wanted to do. Was they just wanted to live their lives not constrained to the flame clock, to this endless war, to this endless now, that they could just live. Yay, right? And then the post-credit scene is like, nah, but that didn't happen though, because the clock's moving now. And I'm just like, but I don't like that. So, yeah. I mean, am I wrong? Is this a misinterpretation that I've taken as the interpretation? Because admittedly, I didn't think this. I just saw the post-credits. I don't remember what my thoughts exactly were after seeing the post-credit scene. I think I already mentioned what I like my first viewing of it. But, like, once I started reading people talk about the ending, and especially this part, and they tossed out the idea that it's about how the XC3 events are just gone, or like something to that extent, I'm just like, I don't want it to be that. I don't know if there's anything official out there that says, or like an official, I guess not really, because the game is the official. The game is the canon. What the game says is what happened. And what the game showed was the world's drifting apart, and then the world from the first scene back for the last scene with the clock moving forward. And as some people point out, events are a little different in terms of like when the fireworks started or when this started or that. But that's about it. And so it's just the idea that everything happened within a second of the clock moving and now it's all gone. It's just, I'm not on board with it. I feel like I'm just repeating myself. So that's it. That's literally it. So those are the three big things. Because like I can't stand the tutorials. I mentioned that already. Like I think, but like on the bright side, they don't last that long. By the time you hit and pass the last tutorial, fine. And then you move on. You never have to worry about it again. And it's great. Not having enough defenders, that's just a taste thing, once again. I wish there were more, and I hope every single DLC hero is a defender. Okay, not really, but I hope that the first one is. Those are just little issues that are like, you know, I kind of wish we had more defenders. I kind of wish some areas were bigger. But this is just stuff I don't like. And that's it. What about Cammuravi? Oh, well, Cammuravi, like, all my criticism is just on the Ethel treatment, because Cammuravi is in the game for 5 minutes and then he dies, so who cares? At least that's how I see it. Like, I think the original Cammuravi was set up as being cool. Like, I like his and Ethel's, the idea that they had this rivalry and that Ethel's colony was demoted to dirt because she chose not to finish him off. And they get to fight. He cuts his own eye out to maintain his own control, which I'm like, that's metal as hell. So yeah, it's like he made an impact for the small moment he was in, and I was fine with that. And then we got the new Cammuravi, who I'm like, I'm less bothered by it because is it unfair to not care about the new Cammuravi but to be mad about the new Ethel? Because it's less the new Ethel and it's everything Ethel that annoys me. Old and new. Or not everything, but from chapter 4 deciding to kill her off to everything else that happened that I wasn't happy with. Cammuravi escapes most of the wrath simply by not having been around long. I don't know if that's fair, but that's just how I feel. I mean, I know a lot of people were annoyed that we don't get any more quests or that the ascension for Cammuravi and Ethel is so short. But I think I would have been madder having to deal with just a character that isn't the character that I liked. I had a whole extra rant prepared comparing this to Bug Fables, but I think I'll save that for like another day. If anyone has any interest in how a plot reveal from Bug Fables inspired in me such anger as this one has. Anyway, again, I think that's it. So I think I spent a lot more time on the negatives, but once again, I just wanted to express them in a way that makes sense, or at least that I can attempt to make sense of it. I don't know if it's valid or not, but that's just how I feel. Anyway, I keep saying that. I guess the last thing I want to talk about to end this on a more positive note, going into a bit of detail on the ending and some stuff and post game, and like having the ability to gain Melia and Nia as heroes is really cool. I really like Nia's class. It's really handy, it's helpful, I like it. The way that you can... It's just, that's like, I don't really use healer classes all that often. I don't like to trust myself with healing, I'm not good at it. But I like using Nia's. I've been in control of, I think, Life Stage Noah for a while, and I just like using it. It's a very effective healer, so, you know, there's that. I use Melia less because, I mean, it's the same as Xenoblade 1. I never really used Melia. Despite the fact that people say, you have to. I'm like, no, you don't. You can get through the game perfectly fine with her on AI. I know this because I've beaten the game 5 times and she's been on AI 90% of the time, and it's been fine. It's okay. You don't need to do the thing that everyone tells you have to do. But Melia's fine. I like using her too. I'm once again, not the biggest fans of them, but I enjoyed them. Like, I liked having them in the game, and even as someone who's not a giant fan, when they did pop up in the story and when Nia actually started talking to us about how the world was created and everything, I actually got happy. Like, just to hear her talk. And like, when you go to the Cloud Keep and you hear the Xenoblade 2 music start playing, like this rendition of it, I was like, well, this isn't fair. They're cutting into my feelings, and it hurts. And then you actually get to meet Nia, and it's so funny that she presents herself all prim and proper. But like every so often, some good old Nia, classic Nia, just bleeds out, and she tries to cover for it. And I thought that was funny. I enjoyed her, how she was used, how the party responds to her, how she talks to them, and explains how everything goes down. I was happy to have Nia back. And then we get to Melia at the end of the thing. I like the part where, I don't know, someone tries to offer Melia assistance in getting her out of the castle. I mean, out of Origin. She says, "You forgot who I am." And I'm like, haha, yeah, you've been through shit. You can do this on your own. These kids, you're good. I just thought that was funny. I enjoyed that. Anyway, and of course, then Riku she looks at Riku, Riku looks at her, it's like a smile, like he's playing something, and then it's like, what was that? So, and honestly, one little thing, going back to, not really negatives, but a lot of people, keep seeing the same, not excuse, the same reasoning, being like, maybe the DLC will explain it, this, that, the other thing. And I used to echo that thought. I don't echo that thought anymore, because we shouldn't need the DLC to explain anything. Everything should be in the narrative. And I don't, like, in terms of Lucky 7, like, I mean, whatever, you know, it's fine. Just move on. I don't need time spent looking into it anymore. I know I said that I don't know it. Maybe it could help knowing more about Lucky 7, but we're done with it. I'm good. Move on. 99% sure the DLC is going to be about the founders. I wish it wasn't. I had the same thing with Xenoblade 2. I was like 99% sure DLC was going to be about Torna. I was like, I don't want it to be, and then it was. In the case of Xenoblade 2, like, unlike Future Connected, which was very, for me, gameplay primary, where I just enjoyed playing more Xenoblade, and like the Melia story, I was like, it's fine, whatever. I like the gameplay. Torna was actually really good, and I really liked playing it. It was a lot of fun, how it was like different from the Xenoblade 2 base game. And, you know, I actually really did enjoy the story. Even though, once again, I would have preferred the story to be focused on Adam instead of Laura. I was just more interested in Adam than I was Laura. I know there was a lot of people who were like, finally, we get to learn more about Laura. I'm like, I want to know more about Adam, though. If Monolith Soft can pull off another prequel DLC, like Torna, like make it really good, make me really care, fine, I'll be happy with it, but I would rather not. That said, I admit that it's likely going to be some kind of prequel or some old story that we'll be experiencing instead. Which is fine, I guess. I mean, what Monosoft made, what, Xeno 1, 2, 3, like, and I think all three games are absolutely fantastic. And so it's like, I'm cool, you know, like, I have faith that it'll be good regardless of what content it chooses to cover. I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious as to what it'll be like. If it'll take any like unique turns with the gameplay, like Torna did, in terms of how that one performs compared to how Xenoblade 2 base gameplay is, which I like both of them. Both of them were very fun to play, so we'll see. I'm very, very, very interested. The ending little bits, which I was a little sad, because I did Melia's Ascension quest fairly early in the post-game, and then I did Nia's. I think Nia's was the last one I did. I think the only other thing I had to do after Nia was Sagiri's Ascension quest, because there were some quests I hadn't completed before. But for Melia's was fun. Just getting to go around town, around the different locations, hanging out with her, seeing people react to her. Like taking her to the city and everyone being like, oh my gosh, Queen Melia, and then freaking out and stuff. And then taking her to Colony 9 and hanging out with Xeon. That was fun. I liked it. And it ended with was seeing some scenes from Xenoblade 1, and it's just like, oh, that nostalgia is powerful. Nostalgia is a powerful thing. Some people don't know how to use it. I felt that was great. It just made me happy to see Shulk and company one more time. I thought they would do the same thing with Xenoblade 2 after Nia's Ascension Quest. They didn't though. But I did like Nia's Ascension Quest, just taking her to different parts of the world and having her talk to people. One thing Nia said though that I fundamentally disagree with, when you go talk to Gondor, Nia kind of explains, because she needs to, like, why did you give the key to Gondor of all people? And she says it's because of the Vandam bloodline. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I could buy that. Because of Vandam from Xenoblade 2. Like, whether or not these people are related to that Vandam, don't know. Because as we found out through NPC dialogue, Vandam, Xenoblade 2's name isn't really Vandam, I don't think. He's actually a royal, a Urian royal of some kind. I think he has a really long, complicated name. I don't know if Vandam's a part of it. I could probably Google that. But yeah, I'm like, okay, she gave it to them because Vandam family, alright. But the thing I disagree with is that she says, when she's talking about Vandam and what he did for them, she mentions it being so far away that she doesn't, so long ago that she doesn't exactly remember the details of it. And I'm like, Nia, that dude killed himself for all of you. Like, he fought he fought Malos, Akos, all of them, to the death for you guys. If not for him sacrificing himself, you all would have been buried. There is no way, no matter how many years it's been, that you don't remember the exact details of XC2 Vandam. Alright? I refuse to accept that. So it wasn't straight up she doesn't remember, but she says something about the event being foggy, and I'm just like, no, I don't buy that. that was just my personal thing. I'm like, no way, you vividly remember that as if it happened yesterday. I know you do. Okay, but yeah, it was fun. I did enjoy the last place she wanted to go was as high up as she could to get as close to the clouds, and I thought that was really nice. Just a nice callback. Also, the fact that she runs around with like water versions of Mithra and Pyrrhus swords is damn. It's like they know what my weakness is. They know, because I mean, after having all this discussion, like, Xenoblade 2 had a profound effect on me when I beat it. Like, not only was I bawling my eyes out after I finished Xenoblade 2, but I was in this like state of I don't know what to do with myself. You know, after I beat it, I didn't play it for a while, and I was just thinking about it, like, what a game that was. And then I went back to it, and I'm like, this is freaking great. And I did the NG+, I did Torna. Absolutely loved every second of it. Xenoblade 3? Yes, I loved it. Of course I loved it. Like, this whole video, this whole fucking discussion, which is now lasting almost 2 hours, is because I love the game. It's the truth. Barring those 3 points, I loved everything else about it, and but I can't deny that when I finished it, I was not left in that same state that I was left in after 2. That's just it. 2 left me like emotionally spent, devastated, and happy all at once. This one left me satisfied, which is not a bad emotion to have after finishing a game, not at all. Just being satisfied with just ending it and being like, that was good. I had fun and I loved it, you know? Like, that's a good emotion to have after beating a game. It's just that Xenoblade 2, there was way more there. So, you know, after I beat 2, I had a hard time deciding whether I liked 1 or 2 more. It took me a while to commit, being like, I like 2 more. After finishing 3, I know that I still like 2 more immediately after I beat it. And that's fine. Like, if I was to rank them, it'd be 2, 1, 3. And on a scale of which one I like a lot, like which one I love and which one I like. I guess I don't know how to describe it. But there's no hatred here for all the Xenoblade games. And once again, he who should not be named is in his own category. So I don't know if I have anything else to say. This has gone on so long, my footage has been overused. So I got nothing else to say about Xenoblade 3, nothing that comes to mind. It was just a good time. It was a good, fun experience. And I'm still gonna work on 100%ing it, which I did for 2. I 100%ed the fuck out of 2. I think the only thing I didn't do, though, which I guess would be, it's variable by person whether this counts for 100%ing, is getting every single rare blade up to S plus affinity. Or like I think that's the highest one, or is it S plus 10, something like that? Like there's an additional one that you can just keep going. I think I only got Pyra and Mithra up to the max before I considered it. That's done. That's good. I don't need to do any more. Some people grinded that shit out. Oh, actually, I didn't complete the reverse affinity charts either because those require so much SP that I just don't have. And I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. But I did do the first. Everything else though I did. So for this game, I at least want to, before the DLC comes out, I want to be able to get 5 stars with every colony, beat all the super bosses, and then get every single class to rank 20. That's my definition of complete. I guess making every gem X rank, but that's a trial. But yeah, I think if I can get all those done, I mean, except for the gems, I'll like, we'll see what happens with that. But everything else, I definitely want to do at the minimum. So yeah, I definitely want to. I mean, I'm gonna do it. Get as close to 100 as I can for 3. And then look forward to all the DLC. Anyway, thanks for listening to this. If you listen to all that, I've just been rambling at this point. I hope everyone had enjoyed it, and I hope that you don't think I'm too stupid for the reasons I don't, like the 3 things I don't dislike. Or if you think I'm wrong about anything I said, just like present your own argument. I'm fine with that. I want to see what's up. I want to read other perspectives. Maybe I'll change my mind. I would like to like something. I'm much more fond of liking things than not liking them. Sitting here going over my notes for my video before I upload it, and I realized that I forgot to talk about 2 things for Xenoblade 3. One was something that I mentioned earlier, which was that I was going to talk about XYZ later, specifically when I was talking about the ending, and I didn't. And I don't know if I had anything super in-depth to talk about those 3. I just think it's strange that you can lock yourself out of, I think, fighting X in the ending if you don't do the uni side story, which apparently a lot of people ran into, and I have no idea why someone would skip the uni side story. Like, why wouldn't you do it? It's like very interesting. It's introduced, the side story pops up during the main story, and it tells you where to go to do it. So, I mean, I guess if you just didn't want to do it, but it's so weird. Like, at the very least, I would do the quest for the main party, because it ups their ranks at 20. I don't know. But yeah, I liked X, Y, and Z. I liked their designs. I thought they looked really cool. Some creepy motherfuckers, that's for sure. X had some parts in Shania's story, too. Y is the one who brought back the dead people. And Zed was what is it that they called him? The concept? Everybody's fears about the united world, or like about the idea of the world unpausing, basically. Crazy stuff. That Zed fight at the end, so long, but it was just really cool. I like the part where they brought in all the other heroes and you got to fight alongside Melia and Nia too. I just thought that whole closing was insane. The whole final cutscene, like when the castles turn into robots and they go fight Origin, which turns into a robot. It's just and the city is actually a giant flying bird mech called Gilgamesh. I'm like, what is happening? This is so cool. It's like that last climax, everything about the final battle, that last war was like, wow, this is awesome. That's just fun to think about. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, much like Amalthus, and I guess Jin and Malice. Amalthus is my favorite Xeno 2 villain. People always thought Jin, Malice, and I was like, nah. I like the evil Pope. And people have done essays or written out big, long character studies about the 3 of them. And the Amalthus ones are always my favorite. He was my favorite. So I know I've seen a bunch of writing in regards to Zed and like his role in the whole as Moebius and what it means, and like that stuff's interesting. I just don't think I could discuss it effectively. I liked fighting him. I liked punching him in the face and closing that out. And the other little thing I wanted to hit on from the ending, which I know as someone who loves Xenoblade 2, it was something I can't believe I forgot to talk about, was the photo. Just the photo. I mean, just like the ending, I was enjoying it immensely. I was just having a good time with the ending, you know. Melia showed off that she has the Monado Rex, and I was happy. Poppy popped out of the thing in Nia's throne, well, not throne room, her chamber in the Cloud Keep, and I was like, oh my god, there's a scream. And like just so many emotions, and then the photo that made me cry. Yeah. So I know I said that I didn't cry for the ending. I think I said that, but yeah, I teared up and I started crying as the credits rolled, just thinking about it, because I loved Xenoblade 2 so much, and I love that cast. So getting to see a little snippet of how everything came out for them after the game was just, it was the perfect little touch. You know, just a perfect little thing to throw on top of everything. Just seeing Rex, who's grown like 5 times the size he was back in 2. When I first saw the image, all I saw was Rex, Pyra, Mithra, and their babies. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I knew the rest of the cast was standing around them, but all I saw was Rex, Pyra, and Mithra specifically. When I finished the game and I was talking to my friend about it, I asked him if he had the photo, because I didn't take a screenshot of it. And he showed it to me, and I got to properly look at the rest of the gang. And I love the clothes that everybody's wearing in that image. I just think they all look great. And I did not notice that Nia also had a child. That surprised me. That actually did. And then I was like, wow, Rex. Wow. Like, wow. And I mean that in a good way, obviously. I'm sure 99% of people mean that in a good way. Fucking Chad. So, like, respect. And that image just made me happy. I was very thrilled for all of them. And my favorite parts are just seeing Tora, like, in the corner. Because when I saw the zoom in picture first, and Tora's cut off in the zoom in, so it looks like he's poking his head in for the picture, like he barely missed it. And Dromark on the side is looking at Nia's baby, and I think that's cute. And I didn't even notice Gramps was in the background. Someone told me that, and I looked at it again like, oh my gosh, she is. That's awesome. So just, it's funny how happy a little image can make me, but it was great. It was really good. Just as once again, Xenoblade 2. Special place in my heart, so that was the ultimate like punch in the feels for me. And those were the last 2 things I missed out on talking that I really definitely wanted to hit on. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and yeah, see you next time with whatever else I decide to do next. Till then, hasta.